Hello and welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. I'm Adam McNamara, and this is the racing podcast where we strip away the guarded versions of jockeys that you see every day on TV, giving them the platform to tell us what they really think. We talk about their regrets and aspirations, and we have a couple of laughs along the way as well.
On this episode, Bryan Carver.
My mother just said, like, oh, why don't you book something? So off I went out to the sitting room, came back in, I said, oh, I'd fly out from Dublin there in 2 days' time. I try and always take the positives out of it and stay positive and just think like, right, this is what's happened, this is what I need to do. That's my aim to get back and get on with it. Time is probably up, and thankfully, like, I've always been of the opinion that when I get injured, the first question I always ask is like, Jez, when can I be back? I don't really set myself goals. I always think it's a good quote that came from Willie Mullins. Like, in racing, you're never on a level. You're either going up or you're going down. Yeah, it's great to be riding at the big meetings, and that's obviously where you want to be. But I think, in my opinion, every race matters.
Bryan, welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. Good to get you on. How are things?
Yeah, good, Adam. Thank you very much for having me on. I suppose the season is, well, looking outside at the rain coming. Hopefully the jumpers will be out soon enough, and looking forward to the season getting properly started.
And what's happened to the old nose there? Did you get a slap or something?
I did, yeah. I got a fall 2 weeks ago at Chepstow and just took the skin off the top of the nose. And then I was riding a young horse again, and of course, always when you're trying to avoid something or keeping it out the way, it got in the way again. So just took it off again. So too big, needs to get out the way.
Classic. It hasn't affected your good looks too much anyway, so you're all right.
I don't know.
I want to start with you with traveling, because I know that you've done a lot of traveling. You've managed to get around the world quite a bit over the last couple of years. I remember you mentioned it to me a good while ago. Can you give us some details on the traveling, like where you've been, why you went traveling, and what the experience was like?
It was kind of something that never really interested me up until 3 years ago. Got a fall. I was actually skiing and I did my spleen. So that summer, obviously, my body, like, I felt fit and well. And I can remember I came back from France after being in hospital. I think within 4 weeks, myself and Rex Dingle, we booked a holiday to head down to Spain. And then after that, it was very, very much like just off the cuff. I was sat at home in the kitchen with my mother back in Ireland, and I was looking at Costa Rica, and I was like, "Geez, it looks quite cool." So my mother just said, like, "Oh, why don't you book something?" So off I went out to the sitting room, came back in, I said, "Oh, I'd fly out from Dublin there in 2 days' time." So no research done, booked it up straight away. Got to Dublin airport then, and I thought, what have I done here? Off the other side of the world by myself. Had no idea where I was going. I was landing in there 11 o'clock at night. So threw myself in the deep end. But no, I had an unbelievable time. Um, Places like that, I suppose. I've done quite a bit of Europe as well, but Europe's very much, I suppose, yeah, we all have our different cultures, but when you go to somewhere like Costa Rica, it's a completely different world. Um, Very, very cool place. Spent 2 weeks there. Went from there up to a friend of mine was living in Vancouver, so I headed up to him for another 2 weeks. And when I came back from that, I felt, like I said, like I felt well in my body, but obviously I wasn't allowed to ride. So I ended up heading out to France for a month, and I actually did a month with Noel George, before he got his license, and Mikael Sroor as well. So yeah, I like to make use of the time when I'm off.
Does it give you like a different perspective? Because I think as a jockey, you can get very like tunnel vision, and you can spend years of your life just focused on one thing, and you don't get a lot of time off. So when you get that time off and you go to somewhere like Costa Rica, does it give you a different perspective on life? Like, did you feel like you learned something?
Oh, it does massively. I suppose going back to that summer, I was just like happy to be able to do something. Like when I got out the hospital, I was just like, right, I'm going to enjoy this summer now. When I came back from Costa Rica, I suppose you see like how other people live in the rest of the world. Like we are very, very lucky over here. Like beautiful, beautiful country, but you do see a lot of poverty as well. So I suppose you come back from there and you count yourself lucky to be doing a job that you love, um, we've got like quite good living standards over here. And definitely does make you look at life a little bit differently.
When you landed there, obviously you said you landed 11 o'clock at night in Costa Rica and you didn't really have a plan. Did you just wing it the whole way through? Was it like a backpacking kind of experience and you just found places?
Yeah, so San Jose is the capital. I can remember I landed into the capital and like straight away I was like, geez, this is fairly hectic now and fairly rough. So I'd actually booked onto a tour through a travel agency for a few days. So I thought, right, I'll go there tomorrow. But my first thing was find a hotel for the night. So I found the hotel. Next morning, got up and I thought, oh, I'll go for a walk into San Jose. So I got a taxi to the hotel that we were all meeting at that evening. But I had like 6 or 7 hours to kill. So I thought, oh, I'll look up. What's the first thing an Irish person does when they're in another country? Look for an Irish pub.
Yeah.
So I looked up this Irish pub in San Jose and I took off walking. It was about 45-minute walk. And as I was walking in, I was looking around and I was thinking like, this is fairly rough now. Here was I, like white man in the middle of San Jose, definitely looked out of my depth, but went in. The pub was actually closed. So I think at the time it was their rainy season over there. So I was just find a little bit of shelter, walk on back. But I got back to the hotel that evening. On the way back, I ended up like bumping into these 9 lads that were playing football. And I was just watching, like passing by, and they were short the player. So they ended up shouting over. And like at the time, I was just like, yeah, go on then. So here I am, Costa Rica after landing a day, and I'm playing a game of football with these 9 randomers. Got back to the hotel then to meet the tour guide. And the tour guide was like, right, what did everybody do today? And all of the others were like, oh, we stayed in the swimming pool or went to the spa in the hotel. And I was like, oh, sure, walked into San Jose. And he was like, what? So, well, walked into San Jose, and he kind of thought like, and you were okay. So yeah, it was fine. I ended up playing football with 9 random lads, and he couldn't get his head around that. Obviously, because I'd only booked the tour 2 days beforehand, I hadn't got all of the notes saying like, oh, quite a dodgy place. Like when you arrive, maybe stay in your hotel, take it easy. So yeah, I count myself lucky after that. When you're there and you meet people that are like-minded like you, and just kind of you go with the flow. So you start to get yourself in these sticky situations where you're in the middle of nowhere. I can remember there was one night we got told there was a forest party going on. So we thought, yeah, that'll be all well and good. So we went out to this place, and it was the roguest thing I've ever come across. Like in the middle of a rainforest, this taxi man dropped us off, middle of the road, and this 4x4 pulls up, and he's just like, "Oh, forest party?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah." And the four of us were all quite like-minded fellas now. There was 2 lads from England, and there was an American and myself. And we were all looking at each other like, I'm not sure we should be jumping into this, but we thought, we'll go for it. So we jumped in anyway. Next thing we're going, like this 4x4 is going through rivers, going up and down mountains in the middle of this rainforest. And we just land to this place, and there's just like a party going on in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And there's these boys that are doing security, just like AK-47s. So that was, yeah, the four of us, well, we definitely, we were fairly cagey after that then, and we were watching ourselves and thinking like, right, how do we get home from here? But it's all definitely a learning curve and something that I'm glad that I did everything that I did down there.
You mentioned playing football, randomers and stuff like that. I'd assume you had an interest in football if you're willing to just kind of chuck yourself in with a bunch of random lads and play a game. Have you got any other, is football your main interest, or have you got any other sort of hobbies and stuff you do outside of racing?
Golf, I suppose, would be my main other one, but I turn my hand at fairly anything. When we were kids, I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. We were all quite sporty growing up, that it was a case of I probably tried my hand at everything: basketball, football, Gaelic football, hurling, cycling. No matter what it was, like we'd give it a go. We were very sporty growing up. But yeah, golf would be I like to do a bit of that during the summer.
This might be offensive, but you do look a little bit like Roy Keane. Is there any relation there, or is that just
No.
is that what everyone from Cork looks like?
Jeez, I don't know. Yeah. He's some fella, like looking at him growing up. Jeez, he's a Cork icon, isn't he?
So when you were growing up and you had Roy Keane as your icon, was there a point in your life where you were like, obviously you're very sporty, you mentioned, and you've got your family there who are incredibly sporty as well. Was there ever an aspiration to be Roy Keane when you grow up, to be a football player?
No, it wasn't good enough.
Really?
I had two left feet in me. I was played centre back as a footballer, but wasn't good enough.
When you talk about golf as well, it's a recurrent theme, I think, with jockeys that a lot of them play golf. Now, it's something I've said this repeatedly, I can't get into because I think it's incredibly boring. What is it about golf for you that you enjoy? Is it just like the time away and having that like headspace, or is it the actual sport itself?
I enjoy the sport itself. I, Jeez, I picked up a golf club. I'd say my uncle was the one who introduced me. I must have only been 8 or 9 at the time. And I was very lucky growing up. There was probably a group of 6 or 7 of us during the summer. Parents would just drop us up to the golf club. There was no need for a babysitter. Drop us up there before they went to work at 8:30, and then they'd pick us up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was very lucky growing up. There was, yeah, I suppose a group of 6 or 7, like I said. And out of those lads now, I suppose, yeah, I was probably the one that um, wasn't playing a whole pile for a good few years, but there's a lot of them playing off a scratch, or even I had a friend of mine, he actually came over here to play in amateur championships a few weeks ago, so he stayed the night here, and I think he's off of +3, +4, which is unbelievable.
I know in the flat Wenham there's a couple of jockeys, north and south, who like to get together and play golf together. Is there a cohort of national hunt jockeys who like to play golf as well, or are you out on your own a little bit?
No, I'd be fairly happy to go out my own, but I go out quite a bit with Sean Houlihan, Larkin Berta. There was actually there a few weeks ago, 8 of us I think headed to Celtic Manor for a day out. So yeah, there is a good few of us play, and I actually there's probably more lads getting into it because it's a handy one to have. If we've got a free day, or even if you're on the way to the races and you've a few hours to kill, you can pop into the driving range or something.
Who's coming away with the money when you lads play together?
Oh, it depends. The old handicap systems are, I suppose there's a few lads well in at the moment, so I don't know, they'll have to be cut for next year.
Before we move on to racing, I want to touch on one other thing you said earlier on, which is about the Irish pub. There is obviously that lovely element of Irish culture that kind of wherever you go in the world, there is an Irish pub within a certain radius. And I think that's always helpful. And I love when I'm over here now, for as long as I've been here, to try and find Irish pubs wherever I go and go in and see if they're any good, and almost kind of give them a bit of a rate, and then sometimes go back if they are good. How important for you is that, like, that element of Irish culture? That I don't want to say drinking culture, because I don't think it is a drinking culture. I think it's a socializing culture. But that kind of social culture and having a few drinks and getting into an Irish pub, how important is that to you? Do you find yourself like lined up with that kind of drinking socializing culture, or are you not a big drinker and you're not that bothered about the Irish pub scene?
I wouldn't be a massive drinker, to be honest. But like the Irishness, I suppose that's something well, I moved over here when I was 18, so moving away from home quite young. David Noonan was a good friend of mine, and he was actually one of the first people that was over here. That I suppose it was his uncle got in touch with David to tell David that I was keen to come over. David managed to sort me a job over here, so it was through him coming over. But I always think like there's a lot of us in the weigh room, Irish lads, especially from Cork over jumps. And it is nice just having, I suppose, you're surrounded by people that have done the same as you. They've moved away from home quite young. And yeah, I suppose it's just having something in common, whether that be the Irishness, or like playing a bit of hurling, or just having something in common. It is nice to be able to touch base about home sometimes.
I think when I watch you ride, I feel like you're talented enough to be in a higher bracket. Does it ever feel like to you that you should have more winners, or you feel like you should be in a higher bracket and maybe injuries or whatever it's been down the line have kind of prevented you from getting to that level?
I hate like going to the typical line of like, oh, I'm unfortunate, like a few years ago, but 3 seasons ago and 4 seasons ago, I had an absolute nightmare of a run with injuries. Like broke my back into July, So I was off for 3 months with that, and I came back, and then 2 weeks later, I broke my shoulder and dislocated it. So I was off for another 3 months, and then I think I came back from that, and then later on in the season, there was something else, and I had a horrendous run of it. Um, but thankfully, like all the people I've ridden for over the years, have been very, very loyal to me, made some great connections out of it. And I'd like to think now, like I've got a good base of trainers built up. Last season was my best season in a while, so hoping now this year to better that again, and yeah, just keeping improving all the time.
And when you talk about those injuries and like concurrent injuries, one after the other in relatively short space of time, is it difficult not to? Because I went through it myself when I had injuries, and obviously I didn't have injuries to the level that you did, but I found it really difficult not to feel that kind of self pity, like why is everyone going wrong for me? Why am I so unlucky? And almost kind of like, I guess, almost like a victim mentality. Did you find it difficult not to slip into that mentality when you had like concurrent injuries?
I always find injuries a bit of a funny one. It's like the more you get injured, the more you know how to deal with it.
Mm,
And like through the years, like geez, yeah, I'd say like more seasons I've been off for something. And the longer you are, I know now, like when I get injured, right, there's a routine I need to go through. Like I need to do this, do that, get away for a few days, um, and just try not to let it bother you. Like as long as you're riding for good people, that when you know when you come back, they're still there to support you. Um, I'm probably a bit of a nightmare when I'm injured because like I can't sit still. So like I always like doing something. And I hate people like I don't like nowadays as I've gotten older. Like I can't take like people running around after me. Like I like
mm.
doing things for myself. I like don't really like the pity. I just think like oh like broken collarbone or whatever it is. It's like oh well like you can still do the day-to-day things that you still have the one hand to get on with it, and the collarbone will hopefully be mended in 3 or 4 weeks time.
Talk to me a little bit more about that process because I know we've got like centres, the injured jockeys fund centres. We've got Jack Berry, we've got Oaksey House and Sir Peter O'Sullivan House. Do you use them a lot when you're injured, or do you tend to do your own thing and your own kind of physio and rehab?
Depends what I've done really. I do actually I use the lads in Taunton quite a bit. You Lyndon, Adam and Jason in there, they're brilliant. I even like go to Lyndon for the strength and conditioning there once a week, twice a week if I can. But when I'm injured, yeah, I always find pop into them. They're normally very good. But as long as you know what you're doing, I think the best thing you can do is actually get away, like book a holiday, get out to the bit of sun. I suppose mentally and physically it's probably good for you because if you're relaxing and if you've a bit of sun, your body's definitely going to heal a little bit better. And that's what works for me. It might not work for other people, but I've sort of got that routine of try not to. Yeah, you're obviously checking results and whatnot, but I try not to look at too much racing if I can. I don't think it does you too much good.
That was going to be my next question: is how much racing do you watch, or how much attention do you give to racing while you're off? Because it can get like quite painful, can't it? Seeing horses that you might have ridden going and winning races.
Yeah, there's obviously there's the ones you are going to watch, like your if you've got nice horses to ride, like and if they're entered up, like you are going to watch. And sometimes the way I look at it is, if that horse goes and wins, as long as you've got a good relationship with the trainer, when you come back, I suppose there's different ways of looking at it, but that trainer might get another horse out of it, as long as you get the ride back when you do come back. But if that horse wins a nice race, they might get an extra horse out of it, which actually, when you come back from injury, might end up being your ride. I try and always take the positives out of it and stay positive and just think like, right, this is what's happened. This is what I need to do. That's my aim to get back and get on with it.
From my perspective, when you're a flat jockey and you return from injury, there's generally not really much to worry about because injuries are generally a bit more rare on the flat unless it's something quite niche. But when you come back as a jump jockey from an injury that you've had presumably from a fall, like your chances of falling again are pretty high. Is that ever niggling in your mind, or do you just have
No,
to completely shove that out?
I actually have think like you're waiting for the fall. You kind of want to like the best thing that can happen to you when you get back from injury is a fall, because you kind of know like at the first thing, like when you have that fall after an injury and you get up and you're like, ah, I'm grand. Then all of a sudden you're back into your routine. You've had your fall. It's out of the way, and like yeah, weirdly, I think that's the best thing that can happen is to get a fall when you come back.
Do you have to have that mindset, do you think? To be a jump jockey, just broadly speaking, you have to have that mentality of just getting on with it. Because it does sound mental to me that you're able to process things that way mentally.
I suppose you do. The minute you start thinking about it, I always think it's probably that's when your time is probably up. And thankfully, like I've always been of the opinion that when I get injured, the first question I always ask is like, "Geez, when can I be back?" Like you're lying there on your back, or you're lying there in a hospital bed, and you're thinking like, "When can I get back?" And it does sound, it is I suppose, it's what most jockeys do. And you just, as long as it's not too serious, all you care about is when can you get back on the horse.
I did have a conversation with Kieran Gettings on this podcast before about jump jockeys versus flat jockeys bottle. And I put it to him that in some situations, jump jockeys are incredibly bottly.
Oh
In a
yeah,
weird way, like,
well, I did listen to that podcast, and I actually rode a good one last week in the jump jockeys race.
yeah.
And like, cheers, when you're in those stalls, I can't remember who was to my left, but I just turned and I said, "Cheers, give me a hurdler fence any day of the week over those stalls." My thing was in there, trying to put its head underneath, and like, didn't enjoy that now.
I don't get that. Because when you're in the stalls, right, we're going to have this out, right? Because when you're in the stalls, you're stationary and they can kind of go up or down, but you've got escape routes. And obviously, you get better at that as you get more used to it. And I was very quick at getting off their back when they started messing around by the end. But when you're approaching a hurdler fence at near like 40 miles an hour, that's like statistically definitely more dangerous. And also, like the speed and everything combined, you surely feel that that's more dangerous. I don't see how you can be afraid of being in the stalls and be fine jumping a fence. It doesn't compute in my mind.
Oh, I don't think it's necessarily the being afraid, but it's more just like, I don't know, it just us jump jockeys look at those things as just like cages. And like when you're in there, I suppose we're not used to them. So it's like that one off of, I actually do a little bit of riding out for Rob Millman during the summer. Myself and Dave Noonan pop in there. And even when you're like doing the youngsters like through the stalls, like you'd always be like, "Jeez, is it good in the stall? Has it been through before?" Where it's like, you never take anything like, I think it has it like this morning, like schooling horses, like horses first time over the hurdle. And it's like you wouldn't even bat an eye. It's like, oh yeah, grand, not about it. Like we'll hunt the way down, see how it gets on, and yeah, just as long as it gets from A to B the first time, that's all that matters. But you don't give a second thought to it.
Does it feel like a different style of race when you're riding on a flat? Could you tell that this is a different ball game to when I'm riding over jumps?
I always think like when I'm watching flat racing, you don't think of it until you ride. Like the 2, 2, 3, whatever it is, like, but it's almost like you have your lanes. You stick to your lane. If the gap comes, brilliant. If it doesn't, like you're riding for a little bit of luck. Whereas I suppose jump racing, we're not used to that. Like often, yeah, you might drop a horse in or you might ride him handy, but we always have a little bit more room. Obviously, places like Cheltenham, when it's a lot more competitive, you might not get so much room. But when I'm watching the flat lads, they are that riding of just like you're in your lane, keep them straight. I suppose as well, they're going so much quicker that if you do come off your line, there's not an awful lot of room for maneuver. So definitely two very different types of riding.
You've said you've built up a base of trainers now and owners and contacts. And this year you had, if I'm not mistaken, your first grade 2 winner. Is it a building project now? Do you have confidence that you're gonna go upwards in the trajectory? Are you feeling confident for what your future is, and what are your aspirations or what are your goals for the like short and long term future?
I don't really set myself goals. I always think there was a good quote that came from Willie Mullins. Like in racing, you're never on a level. You're either going up or you're going down. So I always think like just always be aiming to be going up some way or another. Like you're looking for that nice horse that's going to put you in the limelight. That's your Saturday horse, or ideally have more than one. Yeah, like you said, thankfully I had my first grade 2 winner to start of the season on Gidleigh Park, and at Harry's as well. We've a good bunch of exciting horses this year to look forward to, and I'd like to think that try and get on the upward trajectory, and just keep things going forward.
Do you do a lot of visualization as well, or are you just taking it sort of one day at a time?
Um, I suppose you're always looking forward to those festivals coming around the corner, but I always take it like one day at a time. Like I know when Sam Twiston was on, like he said about Nico saying you ride the race, not the occasion. I always think like each race you go out in, you're there to like ride your horse, like, and as long as you've ridden that horse to the best of your ability, like I always think like the occasion, yeah, it's brilliant to like win those nicer type of races or whatnot, but to the owner, like it means more to me. Like you might be riding for an owner that you've known for 15, like however many years, and you ride them a winner at Newton Abbot, say on a Thursday during the summer, like that winner can for them, it's like it's brilliant to see from our perspective, like how much joy they get out of it. So I just think like, yeah, it's great to be riding at the big meetings, and that's obviously where you want to be. But I think, in my opinion, every race matters.
Let's talk about a little bit just about Gidleigh Park and that Grade 2 win, that specific race, and the feeling that you got afterwards. Obviously, being your first Grade 2 winner, what was the feeling? I always feel like with most jockeys, there's always a sense of relief when they get that big winner, because you've been kind of wanting it for so long, and then it finally happens and you've got the job done. The immediate emotion is usually relief. What was the immediate emotion for you?
That was a funny one because I don't know if you remember, but like the time before Windsor was Kempton, and I suppose that was probably my first maybe like high profile ride for Harry. Gidleigh Park, going to Kempton, making his chase debut, and I pulled him up after jumping 5 fences. And at the time, it was like there was nothing majorly obvious. I just thought, oh, he's not right. Like, didn't feel himself whatsoever. So it was like looking back at it now, it was a brave call, but in my head, it was the right call because the horse wasn't feeling right. And afterwards, he actually got checked over by the vets, and he had atrial fibrillation. Harry and Kira did a brilliant job getting him back, obviously going to Windsor. So for me, I got more satisfaction out of Windsor, obviously because of like coming off the back of Kempton, going to Windsor. He was going there as an outsider. Everybody kind of thought like track would be too sharp, down to 2 miles. Like he looks like a big galloping horse that wants 3 miles, but he's not short of speed. So yeah, I got a lot of satisfaction. I suppose there's a little bit of relief in there. Like yes, you ticked off the first big one, but mostly satisfaction. And just yeah, delighted.
The final one for you that I have to ask you, that I ask everyone, is how is the love life?
Good, I think anyway. You might have to ask Georgia that. But no, all good. Yeah, we've been with Georgia now for 3 years and living together for the year, which probably hard on her, but all going well.
Do you find it like difficult, generally speaking, to manage a relationship being a jockey, or is that something that comes kind of naturally to you, or has it been difficult in the past, or is it something you figured out as you've gotten older?
I don't really think about it, to be honest. Just seems to work. Like Georgia's busy, doing what she's doing. And then obviously this time of year, I'm very busy. So it just seems to work well. She's quite patient and quite understanding of like, oh, there is some days that you leave the house at 4 o'clock. You might not get back until 10 o'clock that evening. And that week you might stay away twice during the week, but she's quite understanding of that. She knows the lifestyle. And what comes with being a jockey. So seems to work fairly well.
Is there wedding bells down the line, like, or?
I try and put that off. I'd say now. I went for the younger model, so I try and buy myself a bit of time.
There's going to be some of our female viewers going to be absolutely gutted to hear that you're locked in. They'll be fuming.
Oh God,
Bryan, it's been a pleasure having you on. Really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how your season goes, and hoping you keep going up.
Cheers, Adam. Thank you very much.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.